Good morning, everyone. We're starting a new sermon series today. And if you've been following along on the banners, you can guess which one's next. How about ministry? Today, that's what our series is going to start on. We're going to start about ministry. It's one of the 5 aspects that we focus on because we believe that God calls us to live lives of discipleship, evangelism, fellowship, ministry, and worship. You'll notice that those are alphabetical. That was a request, so that helps too. Why are we doing this? Why these 5 things? Why not other things? Well, there seems to be a pattern that's developed in Scripture. And there's several times where these 5 aspects come together. And when we live with these, and we live these in balance, we have a healthy spiritual life. So is that a good enough point? Well, that's good too. That's how it blesses us. But the bigger thing is, healthy things grow. Is that a general principle by God? Healthy things grow. So how do we know if something's healthy? How do we know if we're healthy spiritually as a congregation or as individuals? Well, how are we doing with these 5 things? These 5 aspects, how do they relate together? How are we living them in balance? Healthy things grow. So far, we've used our summertime to consider our thirst for God, which was a point to help us focus on our evangelism. Then we talked about following Jesus as his disciples. It's not just knowing about God, but it's letting him change us so that we are a better representation of him. Lately, we've been talking about the blessings of fellowship and how God has called us to be invitational in our lives, to not be independent thinkers, but to think of community. And so we're going to spend some time, 5 weeks, about ministry. And the aspect of ministry that we're going to focus on is Jesus' body at work. So we're going to do some aspects of the body. We're going to finish off this whole set of series by looking at worship and the blessings of worship. Why do we start with God-centered worship? How does that then change our understanding of the rest of it? According to our banner here, what's the definition or explanation of ministry? Ministry is helping others. Did Jesus show that in his life? Was he helpful to people around him? In lots of ways. He came and was wrapped in the flesh, the incarnation, the birth story, the account, the coming of the Messiah, the Christmas message. But he used his body for ministry. Jesus took care of those around him and he helped people in a variety of ways. When Jesus left the earth, he left behind his disciples who were to live like him, and Jesus calls these people his church, his bride, and he also says, "This is my body." Just like Jesus used his body for ministry, we're called to be useful in ministry as well, because our bodies are made to care for others. The first part of the body that we're going to be looking at is our eyes. Jesus used his eyes to care for others, and so do we. So I want to talk to our kids in particular. Any of the kids who want to come up front, we're going to talk about eyes. Yes, you can answer because they're science questions. Got to remember which notes I have. Any of the kids want to come forward? Can I have my little object? Do you like my little balloon? I got my eye on you. Do you want to touch it? I touched you with my eye. What do we know about the eye? That's the outside, a picture of it. You see those parts there that I drew on? Where's the pupil?
Blue.
What color is it?
Black.
Black. What's the iris? You see it on the screen there? The blue part. What color is your iris? Not blue. Brown. Blue, blue, brown. And this white part, the major part of the eye, the sclera or sclera. That's what it looks like from the outside. You can only see about 1/16 of the eye from the outside. If you turn it sideways, those are the other parts of the eye. So we have the ciliary body, the iris, the lens, the pupil, the cornea, the sclera, the choroid, the retina, the fovea, and the blowy-uppy part, the optic nerve. Don't touch my nerves. That's what it looks like sideways. There's one part of the body that does not have blood vessels. Did you know that? Only one part of the body that has no blood vessels. It's in the eye. So here's some facts about eyes. Half of our brain, some say 60% of our brain is used in the process of seeing. 60% of our brain is used in just seeing, gathering information. And which part of the cornea is the only living tissue that does not contain any blood vessels? It's in the eye. All babies are colorblind. Do you know that? All babies are born colorblind. And that takes a little while for that to work out. But your eyes develop very early. Your eyes are the same size. They don't grow. Babies' eyes are the same size that they are for the rest of their life. So how big is your eye? About the width of my thumb. So little tiny baby has that size, and you will right till the end of your life. It's the part of the body that does not grow. It's so complex, so much information. It is actually tied into the brain. It's a part of our processing of the brain, so it doesn't grow. The average person blinks 12 times a minute. Did you blink? Blink. 12 times a minute? That's 10,000 blinks a day, which adds up pretty fast. So that's why you're tired all the time. How soon does your eye develop? 2 weeks. 2 weeks after conception, the eyes start to develop. It takes that long in the gestation for the baby to develop, for that eye to develop. It's such a complex part of the brain. Because there are more than 2 million working parts, all the cells of the eye and the optic nerve and the blood vessels, 2 million parts, and we're processing 36,000 bits of information. If you like computers, that's a lot faster than your download speed. 36,000 bits of information constantly an hour. We process the world through our eyes. How far can you see a candle? If it was the right conditions, how far do you think? What do you think? In the dark, how far? Could you see a candle from here to the back of the building? If you had one candle? Could you see a candle from here to the stop sign that's way down the road? Yeah or no? What do you think? Is that too far? You think you could see one candle if it was really dark and you looked way down at the stop sign? Well, here's, for those of you that understand dot metric, 14 miles, 21 kilometers. If it was absolute dark, you could see one candle 20 kilometers away. Isn't that amazing? That's how sensitive our eyes are to understanding it. Because our eyes contribute 85% of the knowledge that we process the world. So, here's our expert judges up here. Here's some questions for you. How many legs does an elephant have?
4.
Count them. You want to answer again? How many legs does an elephant have? How many? 6. It's a 6. What's the problem with the picture? Can your eyes deceive you? Can you be tricked? Yeah. How about this? I'll show it and you tell me. Is it a duck or a rabbit? Ready? 1, 2, 3. What is it? What is it, duck or a rabbit? You can't answer both. Can you see both? If you look at this, what is it? If those are the ears, then this is the eye, and that's a bunny. If this is a beak, and that's the eye, then this is a duck. It's a bunny duck. Is this a young woman or an old woman? Ready? You're the panel of experts, so you tell us the truth. Is that a young woman or an old woman? If this is her nose and she's looking away like this, it's a young woman. If this is her nose and this is her mouth, what is she? What is she? You're as a panel of experts, you're not doing really well with these. How about this one? Tell me how many white dots. Are you? What's your answer? I think, what's the problem with counting them? They continue to move, don't they? There's 100 at least. But then some are gray, and then they're black, and then they're white. Is that a vase or two faces? Two faces. See, there's a nose, and there's a nose. That's two faces. But if this comes down here, and that's the bottom of the vase, then that's a vase. Can our eyes be deceived? Does it take a bit of work to know what to look at? Is this a bird that's holding on to a man? Do you see that in the picture? Or is it a man sitting in a boat by a fish? What do you think? Does it take a bit for you to see what's there? And our eyes help us process the world around us. Okay, Abigail, you could have sat over here, but you're not on the panel of judges. Who is this? Is it Wolverine? Or is this Batman and Batman? Matthew was exploding up here. Is it Wolverine or two Batman? Wolverine is a good answer. Okay, so we're going to, seeing our eyes, seeing the world, the needs around us. Like that's how we help others. So we have to see the world around us. How do you think our eyes help our bodies care for others? Because they can see. So what could you see that then would tell your body to do something? If somebody was hurt and you saw that, then what would your body do? Go and help. What's something else that you could see that would then tell your body to go help somebody? Okay, maybe if somebody was mad or sad, you could see that and then go and help them or talk to them. If somebody was trying to lift something, maybe you could see that and help them. Our eyes help us see the world, but they also tell our body when to help people. And so at the end of the sermon, I'm going to ask everybody, what are ways that maybe your eyes could look for things this week that you could be helpful? What could you look for? Just like those pictures. You could see it one way or you could see it another way. When we look through the week, we might see more opportunities because we're looking for them. Do you know a little song, Be Careful Little Eyes? How does that go? Be careful little eyes, what you... Be careful little eyes, what you see. Now why? The Father up above is looking down in love. So be careful, little eyes, what you see. So this week, I want us to focus on what we can see and how that helps us help other people. So you can go back to your seats. Next week, you'll be answering questions about the heart. If you want to brush up on that, that would be good. Did Jesus see when people were in need? Almost in a unique sense. He would be walking into a crowd, he would be near people, and there were needs around him constantly. There's a passage here in 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 18, that reminds us that we can see things that are usually unseen. Jesus helped people because he saw needs that other people would just pass by. The parable of the Good Samaritan. Why did they keep passing by? They didn't see that they could help. They didn't think it was their responsibility. That was a parable that he told. But many times we read of Jesus looking at something and addressing a need and helping out. In 2 Corinthians 4:18, we read that we can even see what is unseen, but it takes focusing. That term is fix our eyes. So we fix our eyes not on what is seen, but what is unseen. For what is seen is temporary, but what is unseen is eternal. That's, in a sense, what ministry is looking for long-term, eternal consequences to helping people out. You see a neighbor that needs help shoveling, and your brain tells you, here's an opportunity to help somebody and an opportunity to show kindness. Here's somebody I can spend time with. Here's somebody that, and you start to look at life differently because you can see what is unseen. In Matthew chapter 9, 35 through 38, we read of Jesus' view of the people and his ability to help when even his disciples saw the same thing and they didn't see a need to help. This passage also tells us Jesus' motivation for helping people. It's a summary statement in Matthew of what Jesus has been doing so far. Jesus went through all the towns and villages, teaching in their synagogues, preaching the good news of the kingdom and healing every disease and sickness. So don't go past that too quickly. Why did he go to the towns? It starts with he went to all the towns teaching and preaching. That was always first and foremost in the ministry that Jesus did. It was an opportunity to share the good news. But what he also did was meet the needs. And it says that he did this in all the towns and villages that he went to. So what else did he do? He healed cuts, bruises, and abrasions. Level 1 traumas. What could he heal? Every disease and sickness. Like, don't read that too quickly. Any town that he went into, he could heal any disease, any sickness. Isn't that amazing? Any disease, any sickness. So what do you think the crowds focus on? The teaching and preaching or the healing every disease? The temporary, the physical, or the eternal, significant, the future? He didn't run out of opportunities to heal, did he? But why did he do it? Is this just an evangelism ploy? Well, let me just have a tent meeting and I'll heal a few people, create a buzz, and then I'll really preach to them? Where did this come from? Why did he teach, preach, and heal? Because of verse 36. It came from his eyes. When he saw the crowds, which is what his disciples did as well, but when he saw the crowds, he had compassion on them because they were harassed and helpless like sheep without a shepherd. He sees that the compassion is stirred within him. Then he says to his disciples, those that were following him, those who were learning to look at life the way that he did. And he said, the harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. Ask the Lord of the harvest, therefore, to send out workers into the harvest field. It's the idea we have a big task ahead of us. So let's develop this same vision, let's develop this same compassion, and let's send people out to do what we have been doing. Jesus went town to town to care for people. First, spiritually. Second, physically. He changed lives with his teaching and his ability to heal every disease and sickness, as well as drive out evil spirits. In Matthew chapter 10 and verse 1, we read that Jesus also gave the ability to drive out demons and heal every disease to his apostles. They were able to help people in amazing ways. The challenge was then to remind people about why he was there and what he was doing. Did God leave us a responsibility for ministry? Or are we only here for evangelism? Is our only responsibility to the world around us, let's just go and teach and preach? Or should we help others? Or should we just help others, but we don't talk about the good news? We don't call people to follow Jesus. No, all of these fit together, and you can't just focus on one. We can't be just a ministry church, just like we can't be just an evangelism church. An interesting passage comes up here in Galatians chapter 6 and verse 10 about who do we help and why. This sometimes gets me in trouble with the work that I do with NeighborLink. Because in NeighborLink, anybody that's in need in our community can call, and we try to connect people with churches to go and help and meet that need. But every once in a while, I have this twinge to say, what church do you go to? Did you call your local congregation? Have you spoken to your church leadership about this? Which is one of the reasons why I don't answer the phones. It's not wrong to help people in our community. Actually, Jesus helped a lot of people that weren't a part of the church, that weren't disciples of his. But what does Galatians 6:10 remind us? Therefore, and here's a few qualifiers. As we have opportunity, in your life, do you always have the same opportunities? No. But as we have opportunity, let us do good to all people. But then there's another qualifier, especially to those who belong to the family of believers. Where does ministry start? In the church. It starts in the church. It doesn't end in the church, but it starts in the church. The congregation takes care of the congregation. The family takes care of the family. Because that creates evangelism, discipleship, fellowship, ministry, and it should lead to the last one. We worship together. And people that call just to be helped, that don't have a church family, are missing the blessing of this. Which is why we want people that are in need to seek Jesus. But we have a responsibility first to the family. But we do good to who? To all people. Seeing needs and meeting them is important as to God and his disciples. Matthew 25:34 through 40 reminds us that helping others is a way of showing kindness to God. The passage is speaking about God the King deciding who should enter his kingdom. It's a story, it's an illustration about the end of time and judgment, and the king saying, okay, who do I let in and who do I not let in? And it's a question process. Then the king will say to those on his right, which is why we have more people on this side than this side usually, come you who are blessed by my Father, take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world. But this is one of the only passages that says it this way. Come into the kingdom. Why? Verse 35. For I was hungry and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger and you invited me in. I needed clothes and you clothed me. I was sick and you looked after me. I was in prison and you came to visit me. So here's the question. If Jesus was in our community and he said, I need a place to stay, what would you say? John Howard Society is down the street. If he said, you know, I haven't eaten in a few days, do you have something we could share? What would you do? Would Jesus be in need if he was in our community? No. Nobody would reject him, right? If you knew that it was Jesus, you would take care of him. Isn't that true? So the king says, here's what happened. You can enter the kingdom because when I was hungry, thirsty, a stranger, when I needed clothes, when I was sick, when I was in prison, hopefully for not doing something wrong, but doing something right and political prisoner. When I was in those situations, you helped me. So then we get the confused face. Because these are disciples. These are people wondering about, am I going to get into heaven or am I not? Am I going to be with God or am I not going to be with God? Is the king going to let me be a part of the kingdom? So they ask a very legitimate question. Notice how he refers to them. Then the righteous will answer him. Those that are in a right relationship with God. Then the righteous will answer him, Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? When did we see you a stranger, invite you in, or needing clothes and clothe you? When did we see you sick or in prison and go and visit you? What word have I highlighted there in blue? You. I don't remember actually you coming over for dinner. I don't remember you being hungry. I don't remember bringing you clothes. I don't remember serving the king in this way. One, I never saw the king that was in need, but what was I to do to take care of the king? How come I could get into heaven and I didn't do these things for you? I don't remember any of these events. So what does the king say? In verse 40, then the king will say, I tell you the truth, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers of mine, you did for me. And again, here's my bias in this. One of the least of these brothers. Not community, not strangers, but the reason people should connect in church, one of the reasons is that we minister to one another. We also minister to the community, but you're missing something when you're not connected to a congregation. Whatever you did to one of the least of these brothers, you did for me. The point of the passage is serving others is a way of serving God. That's the illustration that he's trying to make. Anybody hand out thirsty bottles this summer? If anyone was thirsty and you gave me something to drink, who did you give that bottle to? Jesus. Isn't that what the passage says? Because if you did it to the least of one of these, you did it for me. Who were you serving when you did that? Jesus. That is a pretty tangible, specific connection. And if you decided to not participate in that, or any other way of ministering, God says there's a connection here. You can't say you love me and not take care of others. That's ministry. But why are our eyes important? Will you take care of a need that you don't see? No. No, if you don't see it, it can't stir you to compassion and you won't deal with it. So when we went out and handed out thirsty bottles, we walked around to see people that were thirsty. And when you see somebody that's thirsty, you give them water because you've set up an opportunity and you do it, and it's a ministry, but it is also a way of serving in evangelism and ministry, a way that we are serving God. When we see the needs of others, now I have 3 more words. What's the next 3? When you see the needs of others, and then there's 3 important words, and meet them, we're serving God. To look out and say, look at all the needs in our community, and you can identify them, but if you do nothing about any of them, is that serving God? Or saying somebody should, rather than saying, how can I? You won't be called by compassion to serve in every way and every need, but God is calling you some sort of compassion to some level of need, to some group of people to serve him. That's a part of why God uses our eyes to do it. So here's our discussion piece. What are some nice things we can do for each other and our neighbors? Shoveling a driveway is a nice thing you can do for neighbors. Is it? Okay, if you're shopping and somebody's trying to unload or load something up and you see that they're in need, can you not offer to help them? What's something else? Maybe it's helping somebody that, you find out through discussion, you find out that somebody doesn't quite have there's more month than money. There's less food than need, and maybe you help somebody that needs that too. What are some ways that we can help? Okay, maybe out of our abundance, we can share the extra clothes that we have with other people. Because the dryer does things. It's weird. Yeah. See, Alvin, you are highly wired for this, right? This all makes sense to you. Of course you can. I can fix your chair. I can weld your stuff. I can mow your lawn. That's just obvious. You see a need, you meet it. But what happens to our kids that are in school? How can you meet a need? Sure.
Someone drops their books, you can help them pick them up.
Okay, if that case happened, what more likely happens in school? Okay, if somebody's being bullied, you can offer friendship. If somebody is not in the crowd, you can offer kindness. You can speak kindly to people. You can listen. You can be helpful without patronizing. You can be available. Ministry is about seeing the needs around us and being more aware. And these little acts of kindness, these little courtesies, once you look for them, you'll see them more and more and more. So the calling in this whole series is just be kind. Do you hear that from 1 Corinthians 13? Love is kind. It's also a fruit of the Spirit. Find ways to be kind. So why do we start with eyes? Having the eyes of Jesus helps us do these things. Jesus saw needs that other people walked past. He saw people that were struggling, and then he used that for a spiritual opportunity to start a discussion. Remember the woman at the well? Was that about helping get water? That was about, why are you here in the middle of the day? And can you get me some water? Sometimes it's letting other people help you so that you spend time together. Our eyes control our body. 85% of our information comes in through our eyes. So this week, let's look for opportunities to be kind to others. Let's do that as we go through this whole series. Ministry begins with perception, but where does it really come from? It comes from the heart. You meet a need because you see it and you are prompted within to do something about it. So, we'll talk about how amazing our heart is next week. I don't think I'll have a balloon heart. I'll have to think of something, though. Let's go to God in prayer.